Wander Wealthy Podcast, episode 68. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you're listening to this. Hello, my friends. If you're new here, my name is Tess Wicks, and this is the Wander Wealthy Podcast. Welcome. I have to apologize in advance. My voice is probably pretty painful to listen to. I'm actually on the downward or upswing, I guess, from a cold that I was suffering from over the weekend. I'm currently recording this on a Monday, and I'm pre-recording this show about a week early because I am about to be off on yet another holiday. Woe is me. The last solo show I was pre-recording as well because I was taking my first ever full holiday break where I didn't really check into work. I might have been peeping around on social media, but otherwise I wasn't editing a video, editing a podcast, writing a blog post. And again, I'm trying to do that. I'm heading off on another holiday because here in Italy, pretty much everything shuts down. My school, my Italian school is closed. My co-working space is closed. My gym is closed. They really take their summer vacation very seriously here. And it's, I don't know, a lesson that we could probably all take from the beautiful country of Italy where, I think that they get a little bit more, they squeeze a little bit more juice out of life, I would say. And that's definitely from their holidays. They are entitled to more holiday, and when they do have, even people who aren't necessarily as entitled as some to holiday, they still take this very mandatory summer break, which starts around the middle of August, and for some people lasts until the first couple days of September. Very serious. I'm not kidding. Some of my boyfriend's friends go on 3 weeks just to go home. Their home is the south of Italy and they're by the beach, but they just go home for 3 weeks and don't work the entire time. So I'm kind of taking a page out of their book. However, I will be heading north to Sweden and Norway, where my, heritage is, to explore with my cousin and a family friend. And I'm really excited because it is quite hot down here in Italy. And when you're in Milan, where there is no beach or sea, it feels even hotter because you don't get to escape to the waves and the cool water. So anyway, that's just a little bit of a offset before we dive into today's topic. Just to update you on my life. I hope that you enjoy hearing spatters of that throughout the shows. But today I wanted to talk about something that comes up a lot. I've heard this from many readers, listeners, and viewers of Wander Wealthy content, that they quite resonate with the topic of not being able or not feeling like they're saving enough. And there's a whole swath of people out there who feel like they can't spend on themselves because they need to be saving every dollar that they get their hands on. It's kind of a two-part issue. I think one part is very mindset driven and one part is just a little bit of a lack of action. And I'm going to be talking about that today. And on one side of the coin, and sorry for the pun, it's true, especially when you're young and if you're a high earner, as I like to describe it, you don't have much debt or high expenses, or you have a significant income. Either way, you are able to provide yourself with plenty of discretionary income to either save or spend. But if you're this high earner, how I describe it, you should absolutely be taking advantage of this time to set aside your money and save for your various goals, especially if you get to capitalize on compound interest in investing or saving for things like your emergency savings fund. The problem I see most when I work with my clients one-on-one is that they don't have these goals mapped out or very well defined. So they're concerned with not saving enough, yet they don't know how much they really should be saving. Now, the other side of that coin that I was talking about, where I'm saying, you should be saving, is also that we need to have some sort of balance in our life too. And although I personally don't believe in full-on 50-50 balance, I do believe more in kind of an 80-20 or maybe even a 90-10 balance, because some things just gotta give. And if you don't enjoy the process of managing your money today, you'll likely never really manage it very well, because you might manage it really well for a week or a month and then just completely go buck wild and fail to manage it for the next, 8 months of the year. So here's what I think it boils down to, this feeling of not saving enough. I think one part is mindset. Where are these thoughts coming from? These thoughts of scarcity, of not being able to save enough or not knowing if you're going to be able to do enough in your early or even later years of working in order to achieve whatever goals you have. And I think the other part of it is lack of action. How can you know that you're not saving enough if you haven't drawn out your game plan? So I want to talk about these two things, and I want to first touch on mindset really quickly. I won't dive into it too deep because I've talked extensively about mindset, and especially whether you're saving enough in the Wealthy Wanderers private Facebook community. If you want to join that community, you can watch all of my old Facebook lives where I talk about this topic. You can go to wanderwealthy.com/FB to find out how to get involved and get into the community and check out those discussions. But I also dole out a lot of exercises and dedicate a whole module and learning lessons on this very topic in the money program. So that is my 6-week program that covers money mindset, goal setting, your savings goals, your short-term, long-term, and medium-term savings goals. We talk about investing, and we also talk about the money system that you can set up for yourself to make managing your money more simple. So having a budget and having kind of this money system with all of your bank accounts, setting it up through your bank so that you know that your money is being managed in the way that it needs to be managed. So you don't have to worry about it so much. So if you want to learn more about the money program, you can go to wanderwealthy.com/TMP, short for the money program, obviously. Sorry for my British accent. I've been watching way too much Love Island. If you've never heard of it, Google it. It's basically Bachelor in Paradise, but with a lot of British people, and I can't get their accents out of my head. Okay, anyway, I digress. Let's talk about the mindset though, because I do want to touch on it for the sake of being informational in this podcast episode. So where does this scarcity mindset come from? Because that's what you're really thinking when you're thinking, I'm not going to have enough. I'm not going to save enough. I feel like it's not enough. I'm not doing enough. Whatever that not enough is, I know, and I have a feeling that you feel this little tightness either in your chest or in your guts, and that's scarcity. So have you ever thought about where the root of this comes from? What was money like for you growing up? Were there moments where you felt left out because of your family's financial situation? Maybe you couldn't attend a birthday party, or you couldn't go on that, not necessarily field trip, but maybe day trip that maybe a friend group was going on. Were there periods where you had to ask for permission to drink the last of the milk, or help yourself to a second bowl of cereal in the morning because the groceries needed to last until mom's next payday? Or maybe you just had some old school train of thought parental figures like I did who taught you that money does not grow on trees. I'll say that no matter what type of financial situation you grew up in, there were different money stories that were passed around that probably didn't serve you. So even those people who grew up in families where finances weren't really an issue, but they also probably didn't really discuss finances, you might have failed to uncover the money blocks that you've developed throughout your adolescence because it's really hard to pinpoint. But if you think hard enough and you really dive in, maybe do some journaling and just ask yourself the questions, what was money like growing up? What money beliefs did I have or what things did I hear about money from my parents' friends, from my friends' parents, or just any maybe older adult figures in your life. Sorry, my voice, it's embarrassing. But what money stories did you hear around you? And how has that shaped your beliefs going forward? And how might that trickle into having this more scarcity approach to money, this belief around money that perhaps you could potentially run out, or it's not going to be enough, or anything that feeds into that scarcity. So if you don't feel like you should have money blocks from your upbringing, you still likely do. So even if you grew up with a great financial situation, you always had the financial resources you needed or that you could be provided with, you still likely have money blocks, and they could come from different angles. Maybe it's you feel like you aren't measuring up to what your family was able to provide you. Now you're worried that you're not going to be able to provide that. That is a huge money block that comes from a more abundant financial upbringing, but still leads to scarcity. So just sit down and ask yourself some of these probing questions. Get out your journal, dive into the money mindset work, and be willing to get really raw and honest with yourself. And even just uncovering these is a really large step forward from going from a scarcity mindset to an abundant mindset. I'd say the next step would to ask yourself, are these stories true? Are these thoughts true? Is this really what I think about money? And even if you feel it in your guts that it is what you think about money, start coming up with thoughts and beliefs that you could tell yourself otherwise. And that's just that first step to really changing your money mindset into a more abundant, money gaining, money saving mindset that is healthy for you moving forward. All right. The next thing I want to do is move on to the action part. So I said that the other part of this reason why you have this feeling of not saving enough is because you probably haven't taken the action of defining what enough is. And that can be really hard because finances are so fluid. It's really hard to predict what you're going to be doing with your life in even the next 5 years, let alone the next year. But it's really important to draw out, at least this year, what your financial future could potentially look like. So maybe right now you're thinking, oh, I might get married in 3 years. I might have 3 kids in the next 7 years. I'm going to want to buy a house in the next 5 years. I definitely want to get a new car in the next 2 years. I want to retire by the age of 60. Those are all things that you want to achieve, you want to accumulate, you want to have in your life that come with financial costs. There's also other things like, I want to be able to travel freely with a $2,000 annual travel budget every year. Or I want to be able to leave my job and start my own business in 3 years' time. Or I want to be able to buy a boat and buy a lake house in the next 10 years. You can dream big, and I would encourage you to dream big. Really, between life activities, life events, major life events you'll face, and also just material possessions that you would like to have that are going to come with a pretty penny attached to it. Think about all those things. And next year, you're going to have to do this same exercise because next year you might think, I'm probably not going to get married. And I don't really know about having kids. That's not really in my future. But what I do know is that I want to dedicate my life to, being able to retire at the age of 40 and volunteer in sub-Saharan Africa. Things change. Your life is going to change. The important thing is that today you know pretty clearly what your money goals are, at least from where you stand now. And if you can define those and you can start putting dollar amounts attached to those goals, and whether you need to calculate it on an annual basis or just know, okay, I'm going to need $3 million in order to retire by age 50. And that is not a hard and fast number. I literally just pulled that out of thin air. So do your own math. I also have a really great module dedicated to that in the money program. But these are things you need to do, exercises you need to do, and actions you need to take to determine what are the costs of what you want in your financial life, and distill down what that's going to cost you, and then kind of back out of it to today's dollars. What does that mean for today? What you should be setting aside? And more likely than not, you're probably doing enough. And if you're not doing enough right now, you can at least draw that path or, lay the landscape of what you could be doing over the next 5 years in order to feel like you will be doing enough. I think the most clarity comes for people when they take action. And if you take action to start defining what your financial goals are throughout your life, even if it's just, these are my goals for my future as of this day in 2018, but in 2019, it might completely change. At least you had a game plan and you had a map. And even you started saving for that house you wanted to buy so you could have your 3 kids in it. But then next year you decide, you know what? I'm just going to change that savings goal and rename it and reallocate it so it's diversified properly and allocated properly so that I can retire when I'm, what did I say, 40, 50, whatever age it was, and I can go volunteer for the rest of my life and maybe just work a little bit on the side. Your goals are going to change. You need to know that. But that doesn't mean that you have to live every week, every month, God forbid, every day thinking that you're not doing enough. And if you can determine these goals, going back to kind of the action is determining the cost of these goals, backing out of it. And what I mean by that is, okay, you need $3 million in 40 years. What does that mean you need to set aside today? And you can do the same thing with other investments or other savings goals that you have for the next year or the next 3, 5, 15 years. Figure out what that means for you today. Do you need to even start saving for that particular thing today? If it is, how much is it? Maybe it's even just a little bit today and you'll put more in next year when you have an income increase or whatever that is. But figure out, okay, that means I can put this aside, this amount aside for this goal, this amount for this goal, this amount for this goal. And that means I'll be pretty on track to hit these goals that I have, between 1 year from today and 60 years from today. And that will bring you some peace of mind to know that what you are doing is enough, or at least you know what it is you need to do that will be enough. And if you can do that, if you can determine those savings goals, then what you also get to do is figure out what you get to spend on yourself today. Life doesn't need to be all about saving for tomorrow, because there is that 10 to 20% that I want to say, going back to that balance equation, where I don't believe in 50-50, but I definitely believe in an 80-20 or even a 90-10, where maybe 80% of your focus and your priorities can be on those savings goals, which, by the way, some of them will be 1 year savings goals, things you get to indulge in. But I want that 20 or 10% to be focused on, okay, what else do I get to spend my money on? Maybe it's your daily number if you're following the anti-budget, or maybe it's the amount of money you have left over at the end of the month that you get to spend on yourself to truly indulge. And if it takes this amount of effort, if you need to go this far and go as far as setting aside a savings account. For me, it's my profit account in my business, but if you don't have a business, maybe it's just a savings account that is a fun fund. And maybe that's an account that you actively save into. It's a savings goal, but then at the end of every quarter, you take the money out of that and you spend it on whatever you want to indulge in today. You want to enjoy about life today, or obviously this quarter, and you do that 4 times a year. So you do treat yourself. But I encourage you, if you feel like you kind of are in this area of your life where you feel like maybe you're a little bit obsessed with saving and you feel, unsure if you're saving enough, do this exercise. Determine what are those goals you need to have mapped out for yourself and start getting yourself a game plan. And then also, I would connect this with the anti-budget. Make sure that you have a daily number that is the money that you get to spend today. You've taken care of all those savings goals. Now you just get a dollar amount that you get to spend on yourself, and you get to spend it on whatever you want. And by the end of the month, if you have money left over, again, you get to spend it on whatever you want. If you really want to up-level your savings or your debt reduction, you can put that towards those goals. But otherwise, spend it on yourself. This is your chance to live this year, this month, this week. So take advantage of that while you're also being responsible with your finances. So I hope that this resonated with you. Those are, thoughts that I've been having over the past couple months as I see more and more people roll in to the Wealthy Wanderers group and the money program, sharing their experience of feeling this inability to feel like they're saving enough, an inability to spend on themselves and really enjoy the money that they're earning today in today's dollars. So take those actions and let me know how you do. Let me know what you got from this episode. If you want to join a conversation, let's get this conversation started. Come to the Wealthy Wanderers private Facebook community. You can also check out previous Facebook Lives that I've done on the topic of money mindset. If that's something you want to work on, go to wanderwealthy.com/FB to get inside there. Thank you so much. I really enjoy doing these sit down one-on-one solo show chats. I hope that you do too. Let me know. I'm always open to feedback. And if you have been enjoying the Wander Wealthy podcast so far, make sure you head to iTunes and leave a review. And don't forget to subscribe on whatever podcast listening app you are working with. All right. Until next time, my loves, I hope you wander wealthy.